so many people I speak to, I'm sure you do too, have the feeling of being stuck, right? They want to move, but then there's this invisible force that's stuck, and they kind of feel like they're on this, merry-go-round, so go run around, or they're on a roller coaster ride of up, down emotions, right? Yeah. And the beautiful thing about deeper sittings allow people to have this fresh perspective that almost gives this reset, this cleaving to that stuck round and round and round Groundhog Day, right? And what that gives people, so there's an expression, and it's a bit like Morpheus to Neo in the Matrix. Neo, I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. Yes. And psychedelic substances, entheogens, or whatever plant medicine that people try to use, they generally have that effect. It's like they help clear the slate. They help cleave the routine, the narrative, the beliefs, the stuck, the this. But they're not going to help you walk through it. That's still your own sovereignty and personal responsibility to step into a new opportunity, to step into a new paradigm.
Mitchell Vickridge, thank you so much for being here for the second part of your interview for the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. Great to be back with you, man.
Dude, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I think round 2 always speaks to the fact that if the first one was a success, and it's like when you go on a date, you're like, yeah, there's something in this. We'll go with number 2.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to today.
For sure, man. So you shared a lot of your incredible story, your journey on the last chat we had. If you've not seen that yet, guys, definitely go and check that out. So much value, hence why we're back here today. I wanted to approach this interview with a bit of a different twist. So I was delving into Mitchell a little bit more. And one thing I came across was a very interesting video on YouTube, because you mentioned your bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
You mentioned your bodybuilding competition, but there you were walking onto the stage on your hands.
Oh, yeah. I know which video you got. Yeah.
And then halfway through the competition, you're doing all your poses. Absolutely amazing. And then you decide to throw on a backflip as well.
Yes.
I did. Talk to us about that experience, because that was so unique. And
well, what's that?
people loved it. Let's just start here.
Well, what's so funny is that I actually was, so just firstly, thank you for finding that video, because that was one of my proudest achievements, actually. I'd killed myself to get in shape. And I'd been doing my choreography because I'd been a gymnastics coach for about 7 years prior. And so I choreographed a routine, and the backflip part, I just had nailed, because I was a gymnast. I'd nailed. It was fantastic. And so I was super excited. But of course, on bodybuilding show day, you're super dehydrated. I had prepped for like 25 weeks. I was just exhausted. I'd already been diagnosed with a chronic illness at this stage. So I was, still bleeding. I was on immunosuppressive drugs. I was just exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I was prepping out back the routine, just a bit of poses here and there. And I was like, oh, you know what? I've got to do one back salt just to like practice it and feel comfortable on the day, right? Because I'd changed my fluids and stuff like that. So I was like, let's just get it. And I did this perfect back salt backstage, but when you're like 5% body fat, I mean, I had lines in my glutes. I was so lean, you could put a 50-cent coin in them. I did this perfect back salt and I landed on my heels. And so if anyone knows like what happens when you get super lean, you're losing body fat, of course, and fluid. And the space between my skin and my heel bone, what's it called, your calcaneus, was nothing. So I've done a back salt and like landed directly on my heels as I've landed with like no protection. Damn. Now, fast forward in the story, then I'll come back to it. I ended up with 2 bone contusions and I was on crutches for 2 weeks leading into nationals.
Oh no.
So I get on stage and I do this routine, and then I must have unconsciously been a little bit of like fear and like initiated a bit of like trauma, like shit, don't do that again. So when I do the backflip on stage, I kind of cut it short and land on my toes. And you sound like, because I'm like, there's no fucking way I was doing that same back salt and landing on my heels again, because I was in pain. And then I do it for 2 weeks. I woke up, I couldn't walk. So I was on crutches. Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad I asked about that, because I did notice like you did land. I was like, did you just catch that? Did you almost miss that?
Yeah. Well, so like in a back salt, you're supposed to naturally use your entire body, and actually people don't realize how much your arms are involved in a back salt, and you're supposed to set. So you go through full shoulder flexion to get as tall in the punch, which creates the upwards force to then rotate. And I just didn't set. I just chucked my shoulders back. So I got no height, no amplitude, and then kind of cut it short. So I landed quite short as well. But that was probably me playing safe. So I didn't land back on my heels again. So,
man, and when I was watching, I was just thinking of the adrenaline that must have been going through at that moment, because I could just like the flex is going on, and then you threw that in. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And even just like getting on stage and be like, I'm about to do a handstand. Well, what if I fuck it up? What if all your training's going to go, it's like, it's all that run. So there's tons of adrenaline, but also just excitement and fun. Cause I just loved bodybuilding and I still do. But at that time, I was just up there to have fun.
Man, you did an outstanding job. It was the most entertaining bodybuilding presentation I think I've ever seen. So you had
Thanks,
me
bro.
roped in. I loved it.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, I you know what? It's rare I say that about myself. Not that I have low self-worth. I can definitely praise myself, but I would say that is the most pivotal kind of achievement. The amount of work that went into that show, the choreograph, the time, the effort, the energy. Anyone that knows that they've just worked their entire life for something, or a period of time in their life, that was it for me. So I really appreciate that, man, and I love that.
Oh, and that just reminded me, like you broke into the splits, like you're halfway through and you actually do this, the full
yeah.
split as well, don't you?
Well, I was like, I'm a gymnast, I'm doing bodybuilding. I may as well like combine the two and do a bit of arts and crafts with my actual, flexing my muscles. So I just naturally gravitated towards that. And then I started to, do some visualization because you're fucking doing 2 hours of cardio down the treadmill. And I'm like, well, I got to think of something to do. And then, just the idea started to spawn, and then one thing led to another. And then it was like 5 months of training in this routine. So thank you for appreciating that and even finding it.
No, it was very, very entertaining. I loved it. Phenomenal. And it kind of intertwines to what you're doing now. Like it really is combining strengths of yours where you're, like we were just speaking prior to pressing record, you've got the breath, that supporting people through IBD, and, you support people through your Cacao Collective business. Amazing Cacao, by the way.
Hey. Yeah, it's a beautiful being. We're just so appreciative of being able to be in this space. Amazing.
I want to talk into this. I actually want to talk into, because I'm hearing a lot about cacao ceremonies and all these practices around cacao, and I love it as a drink, and I treasure it. Like having had the conversation with you previously about you just sharing what goes into the harvesting when it's done correctly, and at least the product you provide, what's gone into creating something so pure. And obviously, like it says on the package, it's food of the gods. But what's a cacao ceremony, and why might people want to experiment or explore cacao ceremonies?
Sure, that's a great question. What first comes up for me is the fact that I'm still a student and I'm still learning. Like just because I have a cacao business doesn't mean that I'm somehow some chocolate guy or some shaman. By no stretch of means, the complete opposite. My partner and I have really stepped into this as enthusiastic students to really learn more and more. It's a daily process and it's a lifelong journey, really. And so this, pertaining now to the cacao ceremony, it is getting more popular, no question. And that's kind of coincides with our mission at some level, which is to make cacao accessible to all Australians. We want to start just with Australia, naturally. And that is because when I first got into about 5 or 6 years ago, it was kind of like there were prerequisites, or you thought like, oh, I'm not spiritual, so maybe I can't attend, or it was really expensive for whatever reasons. And so we just saw those things that we kind of wanted to help support and also bring the ceremony home. So I kind of explain it in 2 ways. First is like actually attending one. And the cool thing about cacao is it can't be owned and there's no set rules. So cacao ceremony could look like anyone. I got my facilitator training done by Keith Wilson and Nicole. So super grateful for that. And again, I only stepped in to train to start learning how to be more of a reverent student. I've had amazing support from guys like Tim Morrison, who runs Soul Flight Ceremony, Willow Francis, who runs Reverence Chocolate. So I've just had so much unbelievable support, and I really want to just give credence and thanks to that first. But speaking more to the actual ceremonial aspect is it's really a way to come back to presence. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but it's also a way to become more engaged with yourself, because there is always just so much out there, right? We look out through the lens and there's the kids and the business and the entrepreneurship and the this and our coronavirus and chaos, and right? And what cacao really does, and why it's called a heart medicine on both a kind of a physiological level and also a metaphysical level, is it brings us back to our hearts and brings us back to our bodies, which ultimately brings about more presence.
Mhm.
And so when you're attending these ceremonies, that's usually a central theme, right? Slowing, or at least observing more of the monkey mind, back to the heart. Feeling disconnected, or like you're a prisoner of mind, you're an overthinker, a lot of worry, anxiety, coming back to the subtle sensations of your body. And connection, which is what I've heard most people say, especially since January, this I call it a crazy pandemic, but that's another conversation for another day,
Yeah.
is they're craving connection.
Mhm.
And so many of us look for it outside of ourselves, and Cacao really invites us to start looking within ourselves and connecting with ourselves. Like that craving for connection is really a craving with ourselves, right? Connection with other people, of course, it's important. And so in the ceremonial aspect, it could be combined with lots of other things. It could be combined on the drink level with flower essences that have certain alkaloids that might enhance or synergize cacao. So like blue lotus, blue lily, rose petals. Some people use chili, cayenne, et cetera, et cetera. It could be combined with breath work, which is what we combine with. I decided to, I was really quite undecided, but I was called deeply to become a breathwork practitioner. So it could be combined with that. Usually dance, anything that gets people in their bodies, out of their heads, into their bodies, out of their heads, into their bodies, dancing, moving, all kinds of experiences that allow people to connect. And
Yes.
so that's kind of the ceremony, like you would go to a ceremony and anything and everything, meditate, all of it, yoga. Part of our mission, not just, making it accessible to all Australians, is also to bring that ceremony home, because that's more practical for the everyday person to wake up on a Tuesday morning at 6:30 and perhaps ship the kids off to school first, because I understand, I work with so many mums and dads and understand how busy parental life is. I'm sure you have 3 kids now.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that they can then make their own cacao and they can create their own perhaps ceremonial space or an altar and sit down even just for 5 minutes. Like everyone can find 300 seconds. It's not that difficult. And there's no excuse, I believe. And really bring their ceremony to themselves in the everyday practice. And so that's kind of like what we're feeling into now, where we're kind of being led with the brand, is not just make it accessible for people, but to also invite them to bring the ceremony into their everyday life, so they can start to slow down their breathing, regulate their nervous system, right? Get out of that high beta activity and more into that alpha flow state where you're more coherent. You have more accessibility to a calmer state. You portray what you speak, another way you articulate on a much more, I would say, human level, right? As opposed to this reactive or hyper-reactive, operating out of fear and lack and reactiveness and bumping up against people. Is we start to become so much more connected to ourselves. And so we show up better for our children. We show up better for our partners. Doesn't mean we don't get into arguments, right? Doesn't mean shit doesn't still happen, but it's just another tool to help kind of support all of us in this thing called life.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? I don't know. It's a human body and we're doing a podcast talking to some microphone and interwebs, but it's like life. This is the dance. And so cacao is just such a beautiful, potent, yet gentle tool to kind of piggyback and have that support for people's just journey.
That's so good, man. It's so good. I like, and if it's placebo, I don't know, but when I drink it, I just do feel incredibly peaceful.
That's not placebo. There's definitely.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so. Based on what you were saying on the last potty, like I did not think it was placebo. So it's kind of like a really deep, what I'm hearing, like a deep meditation, except beyond just maybe what they get in a meditation. So if someone had 5 minutes, only 5 minutes every single day to do some connection work, if they were to bring some cacao into their life and have a little cacao ceremony, not only are they getting the connection, but they're going to get the benefits, the health benefits of the cacao itself.
For sure. Absolutely.
Which is phenomenal. So it kind of ticks both boxes. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, arguably it's the most nutritionally complex and dense plant on the planet.
Wow.
The most complete, the most nutritionally dense, super high in antioxidant action, abundant in minerals. And the three that we're most deficient in, which from memory is zinc, magnesium, and iron, which ticks all those boxes. So you're just getting so much. You're getting the bioactive compounds, the feel good bioactive compounds. You're getting a gentle stimulation. There's nothing that I have against coffee. I think caffeine's fantastic. Or coffee, I should say, because there is caffeine in cacao, but albeit a small amount. So you're getting more of a gentle stimulation, and the fatty acids help extend that, right? If you're doing water in coffee, it's like that up, go, crash. Cacao gives that beautiful, because you got the theobromine in the cardiovascular stimulation. You got the PEA working on the central nervous, and you got a little bit of caffeine to just kind of bump it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the anandamide, which is going to help, again, lift the user's mood, right? You got all these beautiful compounds, lots of tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin. Like cacao's known as nature's antidepressant.
There you go.
Well, and energy-wise, it's also kind of known as nature's amphetamine, right?
Ah.
So yeah, just such a beautiful plant. It blows me away on a sciencey level. I experienced my first spiritual connection with it at Jim Morrison's Soul Flight, where I was just washed with pure unconditional love. If you had a setup prior, like, oh, I was washed with unconditional love, I'd be like, please, I was very left brain oriented. And then I was started to, come back more into my body, more into my emotions, and more to connection. So yeah.
I love that.
I could speak all day, but as you know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have it. I'm very grateful to have it in my life. And I'm so glad we had the last interview. I know every time I have a conversation with you, brother, it seems that my life elevates on some level. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Thanks, brother, yeah.
I really mean that.
Cool.
The breath work, I understand. I want to go into breath work with you. Excited. Fungi. This is something I'm a little bit confused. The big question mark after that one. I'm curious to know, first of all, what is this? Like, this is an entirely new conversation for me. So help educate me and tell me what your experience with it's been.
Oof, okay. I first want to again iterate. I am not a mycologist. I am not an expert by any means. I just have a deeply seated passion for these things, and things that just really resonate and help support my journey. So that's really on me to share. Although I love researching for sure. I would first start at the grassroots level, which is that what we're starting to learn now, and guys like your Paul Stamets, Michael Pollan, they're probably two. They're amazing. Paul Stamets has a book I forgot, and he also has 2 Joe Rogan podcasts, which for your viewers, I would highly recommend they watch if they haven't heard of Paul Stamets, who's just a beautiful man and a mycologist. So studies the study of mycelium and what he would call fungi. Okay. And Michael Pollan, who, again, brilliant man, and he has a book, How to Change Your Mind, and that works with psychedelics and sections of psilocybin mushrooms, which is a form of fungi, and a psychedelic mushroom. Of course, we have your shiitake and portobello and maitake and all these different oyster mushrooms. And so they all possess different things, but I wanted to start at the grassroots level of the mycelium network. And the mycelium network, I don't want to say anything that's beyond my scope of means, but it's essentially, it's like the internet of things for nature that gets to communicate with all different plant life and even animal consciousness, because everything is connected. It's not like, the finger's not connected to the brain, because at some level, the brain to the this, to the this, to this ends up at the finger, and I move my finger because of the brain, right? So there's this whole connection, and the mycelium is the network that supports this interconnection. And I think we're probably only on the cusp of moving towards even remotely understanding this level of intelligence. And in fact, if I remember correctly on that, the first Paul Stamets podcast, he talks about this Japanese study where they inoculated some oats, I think, and then they got a mycelium to basically go through this maze. I'm totally going to butcher this, but the premise remains. And the model was of the Japanese subway station. It was, I think, of a major city. And cut a long story short, because I'm going to butcher the details, essentially the intelligence of the mycelium mapped in this maze of the Japanese subway station more efficiently than the Japanese subway station itself. So in other words, the fungi and the track that it went on through this inoculation did it more efficiently than the most advanced engineers in Japan.
Wow. And
so this speaks to, again, the intelligence of consciousness, which is like, again, what's operating my thyroid gland right now? I don't know, but it's there, that which is. And so that's where it kind of starts. And then the mushrooms grow off this mycelium network, which all plant does, all plant life does for that matter. So I wanted to start kind of with this intelligence of the mushroom and, the ancient history. I think went back to, the first fossil they found was 2.2 billion. I could get that wrong, but it's enormous, just stupendous. And we are more mushroom than we are human. We are more fungi, I should say, than we are human.
Wow.
Right? So, it's like the old, so somewhat the new paradigm was like we're more bacterial than we are. I mean, we're barely human. It's just that human is a word that we decided was quite convenient to describe the Homo sapien, right?
Yep.
And that's why I find this whole this whole fiasco quite interesting, because we are germs, we are viral, we are bacterial, we are fungal.
There you go. Yeah.
And it probably speaks to, again, this symbiotic relationship that we have with nature. And who are we to think that we can outperform it? Who are we to think we can outsmarten it? We can only utilize the tools we have, right? So does that. So yeah. So, I kind of remember when I first got into mushrooms, and it was, psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. They were the kind of the first. I don't think I ever liked eating mushrooms when I grew up. I didn't really like any vegetables. I think many would join me in that.
Yes.
But it was the pathway of psychedelic mushrooms, and really psychedelics in general, and how they could help promote the mystical experience, or help support the mystical experience, which, I now know can be done via meditation, via breathwork, via lots of things. And so it kind of all started there. I was about 18 years old and I discovered psilocybin mushrooms. Joe Rogan was talking about it. YouTube was becoming popularized, and it started in the scene. And, then I found about the 70s, before Nixon declared the war on drugs, I started just, setting my foot in. And they've just had an incredibly profound effect in so many different ways, from cognition to sensory perception to healing, really healing root traumas. And that's why it's so heavily now utilized, and it's all coming back now. It's places like California, New York University, MAPS, Johns Hopkins University, because these substances are so powerful for healing. And I think that's probably the central point of psychedelic mushrooms, at least.
Yes.
Right, yes. We're having that conversation, is their potential power to heal, and from one-time use. Okay. So people might have, drawn out sessions. There might be, some type of therapy in the United States or Europe or somewhere where they, different psychotrained practitioners, psychotherapists that are trained psychedelic practitioners would have different things. But some anecdotal reports and even clinical trials are showing one-time use, say, that's massively cutting alcoholism, massively working with PTSD, massively working with these things off of one. So you think about the economic implications of that. Yeah. How many people are 22 years later still on Lexapro?
Oh, yeah.
How many people have spent $17,000 seeing a psychotherapist? That's not to bash anyone. That's I'm not saying it's useless. But when we start to take this seriously, which I think we are now, and we can start to pull back from the egocentric view of the world and more of the all, which is, again, what psychedelics generally do. They connect us to the all, the divine, the oneness, the wholeness. We come out with a fresh perspective. We come out with a new paradigm. And that could be so healing. That's what sometimes really healing is about. You have to go to an experience that was so traumatic, so painful, so shadowy, so dark, so heavy and dense, to be able to sit with it in a safe environment, in a feeling of safety, where you can access that pain and access that, perhaps, quote unquote trauma. It's a very popularized term these days. Mm-hmm. And to be able to then meet yourself with compassion and pull that part of you to really accept that part of yourself. And, really circumventing, that's another thing that psychedelics and plant medicine, and in this case, psilocybin mushrooms, really allow you to do.
Okay. And was that your experience with them when you had, or you've utilized psychedelics, you've been able to go to the dark places, if you want, and just come to terms with those?
Absolutely. And I also just immediately want to speak to the pleasure body as well. Mm-hmm. So even though they're so healing, and they can be healing in a way where you don't experience pain. I mean, I've had experiences where just from A to Z, start to finish, has been nothing but pure connection and love and enlightenment, right? But yes, absolutely, to answer your question, to most people don't want to access their pain because they feel like there's the fear in the way, or they're afraid of what they might do, or they want to be with someone, but they're embarrassed, or they want to be vulnerable because that would result in them, possibly being shamed. And they create all these ideas to block their heart and block their mind and block the whole world out. And so it's like, yeah, the psychedelic, or the psilocybin mushroom, gives you access to start feeling safer within yourself, so you can access that place. Mm-hmm. Right? Safety is number one, really. When we talk about traumatic events and healing, safety is number one. It's the lock and key. We don't feel safe, we can't unlock that place within ourselves. Yes. We can't go to that place, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much we don't know. But I would say, just to answer directly on that question, there's been multiple different experiences, all different ranges.
That's phenomenal. Like, I'm just getting this visual of the avatars going and connecting their tentacle things to the mother tree.
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Like this all-encompassing intelligence that goes through everything else.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I'm glad we had this conversation, because I'm always keep an open mind to everything. I like to hear people's perspectives. So this is very interesting.
For sure. And, just one thing I'd love to maybe piggyback, because I'm trying to also think of, your audience here. Um, let's just hopefully maybe wave a magic wand, and within the year 2030, you got a decade with, all the time it takes, that all suddenly all countries around the world decriminalize psilocybin mushrooms, because who is anyone to tell you what you can and can't do with your own level of consciousness and your own privatized life in your own home or wherever, as long as it's safe, number one, you're responsible, number two, and three, you're not hurting anyone else.
Yes.
Who is anyone to tell you what you can and can't do?
Yeah.
We allow people to drink the most boring of drugs, alcohol, yet we don't allow people to explore their own healing, whether by themselves or with someone trained that they trust, for these types of experiences. So, that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to speak to just quickly for your audience is that, just like you and you're kind of the mindset industry, and I'm in the wellness industry, which involves mindset too, especially overcoming chronic illness. And that is that, so many people I speak to, I'm sure you do too, have the feeling of being stuck, right? They want to move, but then there's this invisible force that's stuck, and they kind of feel like they're on this, merry-go-round of this roller coaster road, this merry-go-round, so go round and round, or they're on a roller coaster ride of up-down emotions, right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about, I can't really speak to so much microdosing, but I'm sure there is literature and also anecdotal reports, but certainly deeper sittings allow people to have this fresh perspective that almost gives this reset, this cleaving to that stuck round and round and round Groundhog Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that gives people, so there's an expression, and it's a bit like Morpheus to Neo in the Matrix. Neo, I can only show you the door, you're the one that has to walk through it.
Yes.
And psychedelic substances, entheogens, or whatever plant medicine that people try to use, they generally have that effect. It's like they help clear the slate. They help cleave the routine, the narrative, the beliefs, the stuck, the this. But they're not going to help you walk through it. That's still your own sovereignty and personal responsibility to step into a new opportunity, to step into a new paradigm. So it's asking you to meet it halfway, but it's still the beauty and the gift of that plant medicine is to, a lot of the times reset neural pathways. This speaks to neurogenesis, and, Paul Stamets, again, will go into that much better than I can. But I'll give you a quick example. He talks about when he had a stutter. This is a great example, right? So he grew up quite a shy person, quite introverted because he had this stutter. And you can imagine what it'd be like to, not being able to speak coherently and articulate in a way that makes you feel normal.
Yeah, super challenging.
Right? Super challenging, right? And super embarrassing. And so here he is as a kid. I'm not sure how, I might say kid, maybe 20, 25, I'm not too sure. He'll tell you. And he buys this bag of mushrooms because he's heard about mushrooms, right? These psilocybin mushrooms. And he takes the whole bag, like not doesn't weigh it, because back then there was no internet, there was no guides. He just took the whole bag, and then Joe Rogan's like, oh my God, how much did you take? And he's like, probably 20 grams. It's like, oh, right. Sitting doses are normally between, anything between 1 to 4 grams, you'd probably say is quite a, so this guy takes like 20 grams of mushrooms, right?
Oh, wow.
Okay. And cut a really long story short, he climbs up this tree, which sounds really dangerous, has this mystical experience, one with God and Gaia and the universe, is hugged deeply and has this profound experience. And the next day he's sitting, he hasn't spoken to anyone because he's by himself, and he went to this place, and I think he was on a park bench or something. And this girl, actually, he must have been a teenager, because this girl or maybe he was an adult and it was past high school, but this girl from high school who he had a crush on and was the pretty girl in school that he never said hello to because he was Paul Stamets. And of course, he never wanted to speak to her, because if he stuttered, that would just be so embarrassing, right? And he had a crush on this girl. So maybe some part of him is like, maybe one day she might like me, right? Yeah. But this girl was sweet, and apparently walked up to him the day after this psilocybin experience and said, hello, Paul, how are you? And he looked her dead in the eye and said, I'm well, thank you. How are you? Wow. And just like that, his stutter, gone. And not just temporary, just gone. And so coming back now, this speaks to, again, this neurogenesis, this idea of growing new brain cells, help supporting myelination, the myelin sheaths that protect brain cells. When we look at things like Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases, ALS, MS, we see what we call amyloid plaquing or protein aggregation in the brain that attack these myelin sheaths and attack then the neurons. And so it speaks to so many things that we now know in medical literature that support the growth of the brain, growth of consciousness, or at least the antenna to consciousness, that can change people's ways in more ways than one, and be so healing in that sense of cleaving, fresh perspective, almost a new beginning, so to speak, which then gives that possibility to new outcomes, possibility to new lines of thinking and ways of being. So I just wanted to piggyback that, because
I love, and thank you so much for sharing all that. that really just ties it up so well. And quite often that's why people just come to a coach, even, is because they just do want to, they want to get out of this and just share it with someone else and have someone else's perspective on their situation. Like there's so much healing just within that. So I can totally understand what you're saying here. And for people to have access to that themselves, as long as, again, they've got some form of guidelines to be following. Not having 20 grams.
Not having 20 grams.
It worked out for him.
It worked out for him, thank God. And even again, like I say, let's wave a magic wand. What if in 2030 you go to the GP and you say, and you have the courage, I commend anyone who has the courage to speak up and speak out and to actually go seek help. There is nothing weak about seeking help. It's the complete opposite. We've run that bullshit paradigm for too long now.
For sure.
And so let's just assume then, someone goes to their local GP. Let's start at the roots level. It says, I'm feeling really depressed. I'm feeling really down within myself, really low self-worth. And instead of going, well, you have depression, here's your Lexapro, here's your fluoxetine, here's your bit of this, and then we'll get on this for 6 months, and here's a psychotherapist number. We start to change the paradigm where the model of healthcare right now, even if in the beginning, of course, there's support, and I totally subscribe to that experience, you're supported, but you're still asked and supported in that process to start going within. To start becoming empowered by virtue of you sitting with yourself. And let's just say microdosing is the new norm, right? There's literature now and there's tons of emerging clinical trials that are coming out now with microdosing. And I actually have a highlight on my Instagram with the failure of antidepressants, not by Mitch or Vickridge, by the physicians themselves and the meta-analysis. And now with these emerging trials of psilocybin mushrooms. And what if the standard protocol was to go on, even if it was a tablet, God forbid, and, because they try to patent it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, okay.
That you say went on a 3-month protocol of microdosing psilocybin. And so you didn't end up, because we still actually to this day don't know how antidepressant drugs work. It's still somewhat of a guess.
Wow.
They even tell you on the packets. Yeah, I went all into this. And again, this is not coming from me. It's coming from extremely high level physicians and scientists. So what if that was the new norm? And what if then we incorporated things like maybe cacao, which has tons of tryptophan and anandamide and this and that? And what if we did it with a bit of breath work and we had all, again, these tools so people take their power back and stop giving it to these cartels and stop giving it to other people, and right? And again, I'm not saying support, and I'm like encourage support, right? So I'm just, again, I wanted to kind of say that, like, what if we hope for a world where before you and I die, instead of this band-aid label of peel, we either look to things like psilocybin mushrooms. If it's seriously deep trauma, we look to a psychotherapist that can sit with them in that, or MDMA therapy, that's another one. Sitting in the jungle with a shaman with ayahuasca, that will no longer seem like something super fucking weird in 30 years, because that's how we change paradigms, right? It starts out, people laugh at it, then they violently reject it, then it becomes normal, so...
Yeah, I love this conversation. Do you think, though, if the world started doing more of that, though, like go and sitting in the jungle, then that thing would no longer be as healing as it is because it becomes mainstream?
I realized when I just said that was, maybe a bit of an overreach, but because you don't have to sit into a jungle to heal when you were abused by your father when you were like, you don't have to do that.
Of course.
I just guess I meant the paradigm shifts.
Yeah.
And I totally agree, because that is also happening too. People are saying, oh, look, I've done ayahuasca, I'm holy. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth. I haven't even sat ayahuasca myself, right? I've worked with a lot of medicines and been initiated by a shaman, which by no means makes me a shaman. But you're right, like things are sacred and there's probably a time and a place for everything. But as a paradigm change on the whole, if ayahuasca and ibogaine and psilocybin mushrooms were to become part of the normalized cultural conversations, and look, certainly in my circle, they are very normal. It's almost normal to not, right?
Yes.
But also, again, they're just tools. They're not the holy grail. I think people also pedestal them, say, go do ayahuasca because it's going to change your life. Well, I also know people that said they had a terrible experience and it was a lot of painful for them, or they might not have got a lot out of it. And look, that's contextual and subjective. Maybe the pain was what they needed and there's a future, I don't know. But I think what I'm mostly, if we're pulling this all back now, I think we're just speaking to what an interesting time in life where paradigms are shifting, and quite quickly.
Yes. Because
20 years ago, with the turn of the millennium, we were just getting past dial-up internet. Facebook and YouTube did not even exist. None of it existed. Wow. It was 2005, 2006. Yeah. And so the speed that we've gone for this connectivity, even though sometimes it was feeling more isolated than ever, has been tremendous. Because I can pick up this thing right now and call someone in Shanghai in about 6 seconds.
Yeah.
30 years ago, it might have been an email if I was probably in the military, but then it was like a letter to the post office to a ship that took or an airplane, right? So everything is changing at such a rapid speed. And the more conversations I think we have like this, and the more viewers get inspired or motivated to start peaking for themselves. I always say, do your own research, of course. That never gets tiring to say. We inspire more people, I think, with curiosity. Mm-hmm. And curiosity is what leads us always, right? If we're not curious, we stay stuck. We stay closed-minded, right? Closed mindset. So I think the curiosity about things like entheogens, cacao, breathwork, yoga, these things are all becoming popularized now because the planet needs healing. That is a fact. And again, Michael Polanyi's book, How to Change Your Mind, Depression up 20%, I think, since 2005. It's not even linear. It's like exponential.
It is. Yeah.
So it's like the model we have is obviously broken. It works in ways. There's merit. It's absolutely fucking brilliant. But the models and systems we're using, that's why I try my hardest not to bash anyone or to make it personal. We all need to look at ourselves first, of course, and the systems we're operating in. And we can start to pull away this bandit effect of pill popping and this and that, and really ineffective or sub-effective, maybe more supportive modalities, and start to bring in things that are showing now extremely, even the science, let alone the anecdotal reports, which are a dime a dozen, in the science that are showing more effective, more economical, which is not great for, Pfizer and Lilly. Oh, what do I give a shit about? I care more about someone's health than your fucking profits and the shareholders. Yeah, sorry, that's not humane. That's not empathic.
Yep.
Right. And you can see I'm, getting paid because I am so passionate about this. Again, I nearly died. So like I've come back with this sense of I don't want anyone to go through the pain level that I had to go to. And, again, we're just here to be the change we want to see in the world.
Simple. I love that, man. I love that. So you were saying how these things can be used, like they allow you to see a doorway, like they allow you to see a way out of perhaps what you've been in for a long time, the funk. Where do you think, like, where are we moving to, like, in your opinion? Like, what's the place people are going to?
Well, you make a great point. It's like people in that funk and in that low state, the verbiage they use, the language always, I can't. And my stern father force and feedback is always can't or won't. My motherly feminine energy is like, I understand, right? You are in the closed, locked aspect, and usually because you have an inflexible nervous system. Like there's so many parts to this, but that's a very inflexible nervous system, right? Someone who's usually asymmetrical in their sympathetic and parasympathetic regulation. They've either got the accelerator and the brake on at the same time. So they're in flight, fright, freeze, or they're in fawn, or they're in lots of different things, depending on who they are and what experience. And so that has the mindset of I can't. And I think as a collective, because again, it's like, we might say there's 7.8 billion individuals, but really, when you understand the secret, you realize we're all one, animating as different individuals, right? And so I think collectively as humanity, we're going through a bit of the dark night of the soul. Like if you look at a bit of Carl Jung's work, I think he had it just so perfect in terms of studying the unconscious and a lot of also combining the metaphysical with the physical plane, right? Physical earth, Newtonian physics, and the metaphysical, that which is beyond. And so, I'm so glad that I got to go through my dark night of the soul as now humanity's kind of going through it. And we see that because fear's up, suicides are up, depression's up, anxiety's up. We're being shook, one of the two. And that's where I think we're kind of at. We're realizing what we're doing is not working anymore. Everything from even agriculture, where we're producing food, the way we're just being driven by fear, anger, shame, guilt, lust, greed, all these things. And I have operated from those things in the past, no question. And that's where I think, again, we're collectively at is the I can't. And when you get the perspective shift that unlocks that, right? So you get that, you have the mystical experience, or you have some type of healing in the breath work, or you do some yoga, and then all of a sudden things start to become possible. The I can't becomes, how could I? What can I do? We go from a fixed mindset to an open mindset, right? And so that's where I think we're becoming. We're taking out of the locked, fear-driven, closed mindset of I can't, and people are now going, how can I? What will it take? Who do I have to be in order to move forward? And that's a beautiful, beautiful area to be, because that starts to show us things about our character. We start to flex our resilience muscle, and we build mental fortitude and all these beautiful, beautiful things. And then we start to discover who and what we really are. And then that moves into then I will and I can. And then anything's possible, because again, you're out of you're out of a predetermined answer into a question mark. Well, I don't know. Anything's possible, right?
I love it. So it actually puts you into a place of curiosity, and you have to be safe to be in a place of curiosity to some degree. And then from curiosity comes creation.
You know it.
Love it.
And, you know, this even speaks to, like, say, the schooling system and curriculum. That has flaws in it. I think I mentioned this last time. Again, I have teachers that are friends. One of my best mates is a teacher. There's no bash at the personal level, but we know, and even teachers are saying that I speak to have these conversations with, is that the curriculum doesn't very much support that. It is changing. I've heard some fantastic things. And also there are schools and institutions that are now changing that. And one here in Perth, a couple here in Perth support more of the work of Rudolf Steiner. He was deeply passionate about, yes, supporting the physical plane, but you have to underpin it with the spiritual.
Yes.
To become psycho-spiritual beings. And you support the child's gifts. Children aren't stupid. I hear every father, maybe you'd agree, and every mother say, my children were my greatest teachers.
Absolutely.
So even though they need our support, because we were pretty useless at 5 years old, they're super, super, super open. And they're not tainted with the lens of conditioning of not enoughness and unworthiness and pain and shame, right? So we want to support because again, if you want to change the world, change the lowest form, right? The humans that are so malleable, right? We can't really target Nana, who's 84, that's in palliative care, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So the future is to change the generations that are coming through that have the neuroplasticity, that have the flexibility, so start operating from a place of their own ideas, their own uniqueness, not conforming, doing this and doing that, become the robots and good and pay the check, right? Really, we're unplugging from the matrix that we've all been born into, this slumber. And we are awakening to the self, the all. And it's going to be a process, no question. And I think it just comes back to this, I can't traumatize, feared, inflexible nervous systems. And now we're seeing people move. There's a lot of moving parts, right? And I almost, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, see the whole coronavirus smoke screen as a way to suppress a lot of that, to keep people back in fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's fear present, there's no creativity. If there's fear present, there's no individuality and sovereignty, right? So it's all that.
Yeah, I love that. Very interesting. And I love what you said about kids there as well. We've always been very mindful to educate our kids in a different way. Love the Steiner schools. It was interesting because we really hit the ground running with a lot of that stuff, down to the point where we taught our son how he could earn money whenever he wanted to. And it was very easy for him to earn money. And he got a recorder for, I think it was Christmas or something. And we went to our local botanical gardens, and he was just like blasting on this thing, just going nuts. He had a hat beside him.
Yep.
He earned $11 in 7 minutes, but he was like literally like, if someone walked past him and didn't put a coin in his hat, he would walk behind them, like blasting at them with his recorder until they turned around and gave him a coin. So he's got
Good on you.
He's got this insane mentality for earning money. Like he's got no lack, but in turn, that comes back on us. And now he comes to mum and dad and he's like, I really want this thing. And we can't say, oh, look, that's something we can't afford. We never use that phrase, but he keeps us on check. He's like, oh, how do I get this now? What do I do to
how can I?
Yeah.
100%.
It's a place of possibility.
Possibility. Yeah, that's the word. Possibility.
Yeah.
And the possibility of anything, possibility of making money, possibility of healing sexual abuse, possibility of healing violence, possibility of healing a broken heart. Possibility gives us the permission to step into something new.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. I love that, bro. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome conversation, man. Let's talk breathwork for a minute, because this is something I'm really fascinated about. And obviously you're a facilitator. Is that correct? Is that the term you used? Yep.
Yeah. Interchange, facilitator, practitioner.
Perfect. Yep. What do most people in your experience not understand about the breath or the power of the breath?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends who I'm talking to. I think if I was just talking to the viewers, because that's probably most important, is that you have a 24/7 free and available to you, that no one can take away from you, medicine. Right here. And, for viewers that have been watching this entire time, we've all been breathing super consciously. Just maybe take a deep breath. We step into the driver's seat, the conscious breath. The breath breathes us, we breathe the breath. And I would say that would be number one, is that we as a species, we're not taught, of course, again, was I ever taught about breath work and the breath in school for 12 years of my life? No, I was about linear parabolas. weird. I'm just, again, it all has merit. I can do the 12 times table. It's fantastic. I needed that. But I also needed to know how to regulate my emotions.
Yes.
I needed to understand my nervous system and how the nervous system controls every system in the body. And so the biggest misconception, I think, well, not a misconception, but the understanding that I think society as a whole is lacking, is that you have a toolkit, which is largely medicinal, available to you at all times, which is free. Like a good example, practical. This sale of benzodiazepines has skyrocketed beyond belief because everyone has anxiety these days, apparently. I'm suffering from anxiety and I have it. That's a big problem, identification with it.
Yes.
As opposed to I'm experiencing it, right?
Yep.
It's like, do you own anxiety? Well, when you don't have it, do you own it? Or do you put it on like hold?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I've seen people in tremors that I've slowly had to coach through. This is in just specific moments. That when you learn how to harness the power of your breath, which means personal responsibility and empowerment and sovereignty, you must make the choice to say, I am responsible for my state. And of course, you may need support in that process. That's the biggest misunderstanding or lack of understanding, is that we have an available toolkit that is free. You don't have to go and get a script. You don't have to go to your GP. You don't have to make it the time, worry about being on hold. None of that. You can energize yourself. You can calm yourself. You can increase pleasure with things like playing with sports, sex, cacao ceremonies. You can enhance the experience by virtue of using the breath and use it in so many different ways, which there are so many, hundreds, if not thousands of different ways you can breathe.
Yeah.
So to answer your question directly, I'd say that is that we don't realize the close proximity to medicine. Everyone wants what? More energy, right? Everyone's meeting their caloric needs, but they still have no energy, right? This also speaks to neurotransmitters and steroids and things like that. But the breath, number one, to energize you. Everyone's got anxiety apparently these days, or a large is suffering from overwhelm, overthinking, constriction, tension, right? Breath. There's your benzodiazepine. It's from nature. There's no side effects. It's free. And it does a better job. Sleep, insomnia. I can probably with confidence say I could get 99% of every single person on planet Earth who has insomnia just by virtue of one or two variables pertaining to overthinking and not serious ones, with just 3 days of breath work. Like that. Wow. A bit of sun therapy and other things. So many things are possible just by virtue of becoming super conscious, or just becoming aware first, because if you're a beginner to it, it's gonna be like, oh, breath work, that's a bit weird. I totally get it. It's like your first day in the gym. You're not going to be an expert.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. You have to decide to go on the journey of developing a relationship with your own set of lungs, with your breath, which it's so beautiful because I can't give anyone a 1, 2, 3 manual.
Yeah.
As to spark some type of curiosity. This is what I want. Yeah, I am feeling this, and maybe I could use my breath to regulate myself so I don't feel so much overwhelm and anxiety. So to answer in short, the biggest understanding, I think, is the availability that people have.
Yes, that's gold. Absolute gold. I'm always fascinated by the special forces, how they maintain composure under such intense situations, and the amount of work those guys and people do with the breath. Like,
insane.
Unreal. Unreal. So I love what you're saying there, brother. What's an exercise? Do you have a little exercise you might be able to impart with everyone that perhaps people could start practicing every single day?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you 3. How about
Thank
that?
you. Yeah, I'd love it. Thank you.
So the first one that I think, again, everything's subjective, everything's contextual. This is not a 1, 2, 3 manual. Bruce Lee's, famous words: take on what's useful, reject what's useless, and then implement it in your own way, right? So the first one that I'd love to talk about is the Heart Math Coherence Breathing. So the Heart Math Institute, if anyone's interested, I would heavily suggest go check out their website, some of their studies if you're a scientist, or some of their resources if you're a mom, some of their programs you can do. There's a lot of free stuff and some paid stuff too. And the Heart Math Institute is like the gold standard of what you would probably call coherence, which is the mind and the heart working in unison. It's when we feel like we can respond to life as opposed to react to life. Yes. And you can work that out pretty quickly. If you talk to even a stranger, and before you can even finish the sentence, they're saying their sentence. Or if you're in an argument with a partner and it's I go, you go, and blah, 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 right? We're in that reactive state. And so the Heart Math Institute has developed a simple, but there's lots, but there's a simple breathing technique that is most effective for bringing that coherence back. And it's a 5 second in, 5 second out. And you can do it multiple ways. In through the nose, out through the mouth is one. You can do it also in through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the nose. but you're essentially drawing air. So because you have to focus, you have to draw air in for 5 seconds and let air out for 5 seconds. And so it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You're just mirroring the breath. And the other additional tool you can use is to imagine the breath, instead of coming through your nose, is to imagine it coming through your heart. Because we're already up so high here, the idea is to actually drop, almost seems like quite little, drop brainwave stage, which slows them down, and it gets us more down into our heart connectivity and helps us open our hearts, which we're so afraid of sometimes, but don't realize that it's just the fear driving that. And so when you can get to coherence, you are conscious. And you're so much more prepared for life, whether it is pleasurable or painful. Either way, you're prepared. You have more capacity.
Yes.
So that's number one. 5 seconds in, I suggest people do it. It's 6 breaths per minute, because 5 and 5 is 10, 60 seconds. So there's 5 breaths per minute, and you would do it for 5 minutes. So it's 30 breaths in total. Draw in for 5 seconds, draw out for 5 seconds. And you could do it anyway. You could do it on a zebra chair like I am with your cacao. You could have butt heads with your partner and you're on that heated state. You're incoherent. Your IQ's dropped. You're saying things you probably shouldn't say. Go away to a room and breathe. Take ownership of the situation and breathe. And so that is a really powerful breath to get us back into coherence.
Love it.
Number one. Number two is what the yogis would call Kapalabhati pranayama. And that's, or some people just call it fire breath. But, this is used for multiple reasons, but I would say the most practical to give to your viewers would be to release tension, increase energy, and still drop back into a state of coherence, because all breathing really does that. It self-regulates our nervous system, and that's done through the nose. This takes a bit of practice, and I'd probably suggest people go actually get some YouTube videos or some training and go to a course. Don't have to go that extreme, probably just a YouTube video. And that's a nose breathe that's done really with the abdominal muscles and the diaphragm quite low. So I'll actually just do a couple so people can see. But it kind of looks like, you'd probably sit a bit taller, but it looks kind of like this. And you can change the pace. You can do a slower frequency. And you're really punching that out breath by virtue of contracting your abdominal muscles and forcing the diaphragm to pull down and tighten. You could do faster ones, right? And that's just a great way to, one, become conscious. All the distractions are here. Really, I'm sure probably flush some CO2 out, so maybe some air toxins from the respiratory tract. And again, regulate the nervous system. And I find, whether that's even before a set of squats like pre-workout or before a gym class or a spin or whatever, really fantastic breath. And the third and final would be just like a morning practice. And this is the conscious connected breath. And this is one that I actually use in longer breathwork journeys, the one that I'm trained in. And that's an in the mouth, out the mouth breath. And the way you want to think about this breath is like a scalar wave, which is the eternal 8 on its side, the infinity symbol, where there's no start and there's no end. No start, no end, right? So the breath is always moving, because sometimes we breathe in and we pause, and then we breathe out, and then we pause. So what we're doing is we're changing it to a breath that flows, similar to how ocean waves come in. They don't then stop and then come out. It's just that you're flowing with life, right? Life is eternal, it's ever moving. So that's an in through the mouth, out through the mouth. So it'd be a, and you can see it just flows. And you're just flowing. You could do 10 breaths, you could do 15 breaths, you could do 42 breaths. There's no real set way, but a practice might look like 10 breaths and stop, and then just feel. Another 10 breaths and stop and feel, and then a third round and stop and feel. Then you might want to journal or not journal, and then get back to what you're doing. So it's like a great pattern interrupt. And that again will bring coherence. It'll help self-regulate. It'll flush out a lot of that stress and tension and a lot of CO2 and then again, other respiratory toxins, and bring you back to that state of kind of more harmony and balance. So they're the 3 I'd say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Heart mouth breathing, Kapalabhati or fire breath, and conscious connected breath. They're really 3 powerful that I use with all of my clients and programs and stuff like that.
I love those. Thank you so much for sharing those, man.
Oh, you're welcome. Hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. It's helped me. So thank you. I love it. So talk to me quickly about a business, because you're a coach. You identify as a coach, correct?
Yeah,
You,
I do a lot
use
of
that
things, but
term. Yeah, of
I don't
course.
like just come by in a box. I'm just a coach. Lots of things. But yeah,
Of course.
I help coach and facilitate people's growth for sure in
Yeah,
healing.
perfect. Just some people like the word mentor, like they're very specific.
Mentor, coach, yep,
Whatever.
facilitate
Yeah,
all of it.
perfect. You've stepped into that space, which is work that's meaningful, deeply meaningful to you. You've got the Cacao Collective, which is another business that's deeply meaningful to you. A lot of people I talk to are in careers or businesses that are not deeply meaningful to them, and they feel like they're trapped and stuck. And like you were speaking about the roller coaster, that's their reality. How have you given? What's the journey, or what advice would you have for someone who is in that place where they have something on their heart that they want to express and share through the form of a business, but they don't know where to start? Like, how have you actually made this your reality?
Beautiful question, man. Thank you for that. It's probably a loaded question, so if I may, and we'll probably have to end here as well because I've got a 1:45.
Of course.
That's okay. I would say by virtue of doing the work, such again cliche statement, and that's very umbrella termed. So I'll probably the subsets of that, but doing the work, and doing the work might also mean actually being gentle and backing off, because so many people are doing the work and burnt, right? So let me say there's a lot of moving parts. Let me first say that what really helped me was a near-death experience, which I don't recommend. Which as time compresses, clarity increases. I heard that somewhere. I think even Kerwin mentioned it sometime, and it's so true. As mortality starts to present itself, your beer goggle glasses that sometimes are a bit foggy, we all have them, start to go, and all of a sudden you can see clearly. We see more clearer. Mm-hmm. And so then we start to eliminate what's not necessary, what might be a bit futile. If we want something and we're pushing shit uphill, we can tend to cut that a lot easier by virtue of knowing we have our own mortality. Oof, I'm starting a bit deep.
I love it.
And that speaks to the fact that I'm just not here to waste time doing shit that's not meaningful anymore. And that doesn't mean that I'm not waking up and just relaxing. It's not like I'm like that was what I used to do. I was operating out of fear, out of trauma. And so I was working stupid hours and caffeinating myself beyond belief and just doing silly things unconsciously, for the most part. And so, but on a deeper level, it's just that I'm not here to waste time anymore.
Yep.
What a simple concept. If something feels good, I keep doing it. If it doesn't feel good, I still lean in, because maybe there's just resistance that I need to push past. I'm not saying if life gets uncomfortable, back off. No, there is, again, that context, but it's really about finding deep meaning. Now, how do you find that? I don't believe anyone actually, well, I don't say I don't believe anyone, but most people think, well, if I don't know what's fulfilling to me or passionate to me, I'm just simply lost. And so we're probably dealing with two things. Some people do know what they want to do, but don't by virtue of the fear that's in the way, or they were taught to play small. They prefer to play safe. There's so many survival mechanisms as well, because what if I put myself out there and I then get rejected? Well, then that means I'm not worthy. There's so many moving parts of that. So there are people that right now know exactly what they want to do, what feels more aligned and feels good for them, but don't by virtue of because, and we can fill the blank there.
Yep.
Then there's others that have no fucking clue. And that's still a great place to be too, because there's only one way up. And most of the time, what I love about what I'm about to say is that it's just so simple. And that is that there's no substitute for experience. And sometimes you just have to step first and worry about the choice and the consequence second. So many people aren't making the choice because they have this idea of perfectionism, and it has to be right before I start. Like, quick sidetrack. I remember when I was a PT and I was about 19 years old, and I was speaking to someone, I forget their name, and they said, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym when I lose 10 kilos.
Oh, damn.
And I get it. I totally get it. But there you go. There's shame, guilt, not so much guilt, but shame around, I don't want to say guilt, shame around their body image and their self-worth. And it's like, that's the story they tell themselves to not actually improve. It's like, when I get there, then I'll start. And sometimes you just have to start and be willing to get messy, because life is messy. And the more we're not willing to play safe and stay small, the more we tend to try and control, stay in our heads, and then find ourselves in unfulfilling roles. And maybe also you're maybe at a bridging point. It's not necessarily black and white too. Maybe you're at a bridging point where you're working a 9 to 5 that you might not hate. Maybe you just kind of, it's okay, but it's not fulfilling the soul. But to maybe reframe that job, because maybe you're stuck because you're seeing it as the unfulfilling role. But what if that was the stepping stone to get to the fulfilling role? What if that was a thing that was giving you the money to buy a coach or to invest in a program to get you to the next thing?
Yes. I love that, man.
And sometimes we have this yin yang black and white mentality. It's either on the light switch or it's off. And I'm like, well, but what about all the shades of gray between the black and the white?
Yes.
And I say that with grace because I used to think that way. I only have one speed and it's go. Well, what about slow acceleration? What about movement? What about then retraction back before we move again? You know what I mean? It's a bit like driving a car. What do? Even if it's an auto, right? There's this flow where we have to, no matter where you look, you have to honor both polarities and flow between them. And if we try to stay stuck in one side, we create chaos because we're not in harmony with life, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of helps with starting there. The second thing is, I think, tripling down what you already know you're good at. It doesn't mean I don't think people shouldn't work on their weak links, because I certainly work on weak links, but people generally actually know what they're good at.
Yeah.
You're either a bit more left brain oriented, you like facts, figures, logic, and you're really good at calculating. Probably do more of that if that's what you love. It's probably a bit hard if something you're good at is something you hate. Maybe that's a story of the day. But most people actually know what they love or what they're good at or what interests them. That's probably another word to use. What interests you?
Yeah.
Because you're either at a desk and you're doing this all day and you're on the phone and it's paying the bills and you're fucking bored out of your brains, and that's still fine. Again, could be a stepping stone. Maybe reframe that to step to something else. But again, I think it comes back to what interests me and lights me up. Again, how many people are meeting their caloric needs and eating a great diet but have no energy? Well, maybe it's because you're doing something that just drains the soul, and it's like, then find out what lights you up.
Yes.
Right. This could speak, I'm really sidetracking, but I guess it'll make sense, is that, when, let's assume a guy falls in love with a woman and all of a sudden he's ecstatic. So all of a sudden he takes full care of himself. He shaves his armpits, takes to his body, goes to the gym, right? He's inspired. Nothing changed except meeting a girl, right? And then 3 months into them dating, she says, you know what, this is not working out anymore. And all of a sudden his heart's broken, right? He's probably in a bit of a codependent relationship. His heart's broken. And all of a sudden he becomes depressed, but he eats the same food, he does the same routine, everything, but he's uninspired. He's had his heart broken. He's not motivated. And then it's like 2 months later, she says, I mean, she's probably playing a bit at this point, but she says, hey, you know what? I really had time to think and I really did love our connection. It's back on. Then all of a sudden he's inspired again, right? It's like, what motivates you? Now, someone outside of yourself is probably not the thing. That was a bad example, but you get my point.
Yeah.
It's like finding the thing that's going to light us up and give us that soul energy and that spark to step into perhaps a bit of mess and just start walking.
Yeah.
Babies aren't born knowing how to calculate or learning how to run. They just got to like shit their pants first and that mum have to take care of them.
Yeah.
Then it's the first steps, but they're not running. Then they're going to walk efficiently and proficiently. Then they might start running and they might kick a footy. You know what I mean? So it's like, remember that life is the journey. Stop with this pseudo reality and this fantasy of what life should, expectation hangover, great book by Christine Hasler, should look like, and get out of that perfectionist trait and just start getting messy.
Yes. Awesome advice, man.
And, you'll probably find within the mess, you find the treasure too, So, but that's the simple way of putting it, is like, start if you do know, and you just, or perhaps find the thing that is unconsciously blocking you, but find the things that really interest you and really just take it upon yourself to step, because there is no substitute for experience. Yes. Right? Like, I'll say that again for the view, like, there is no substitute for experience.
True.
And that is by virtue of stepping into the mess and growing and learning and getting feedback so you can start refining. Because I know that I'm going to be a better coach in 10 years, but I'm not going to pretend that I can't coach now because there's some pseudo fantasy of who I should be in 10 years.
Yeah.
Then I rob myself of who I am in this present moment, 23rd of October, 2020, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that helps, someone listening is either maybe do some psilocybin mushrooms and have a mystical experience and break through it. But you got to move. You got to move. Life is movement. We never see the planets just stop because they're just, everything moves. Move with it.
Yeah. I love that. Awesome. Wisdom there, my friend. Thank you so much. And thank you for adding so much value as always. What I love about the conversations with you, Mitch, is it really speaks to this point of people empowering themselves. And I feel that there's so much available. And this is a massive belief of mine. There's so much available to everyone that we're not tapping into for the most part. And people are turning to these quick fixes and relying on other people to fix them before they ever explore what's available for them to heal themselves. So, man, I love the work you're doing. I have such admiration for the way you show up, for you living your truth so powerfully.
Thank you,
And
brother, and right back at you for that. Thank you.
thank you. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that we got to have a part 2 of this conversation. You shared your details in the last interview, but just again, like, where can people get behind your work? I want you to share where you want them to explore, working with you or whatever else you've got cooking. How can they get in contact with you, man?
For sure. So, I'm really strictly only working with people that have digestive distress now. The website is coming. It's about time I got one. So that's where I'm moving at the moment, is moving to actually getting a website that I can be really proud of, and that is going to help people find that hub. But otherwise, just Instagram and Facebook for now. I mean, it's 2020. There's so many ways to access, people. And jump into their vortex. Our website is www.cacao, like it's the name, cacaocollective.com.au. If people are interested in purchasing cacao, we'd love to support you in your journey, and we love being supported. By growing Cacao Collective, you do all the other things that help support the ecosystem that we're trying to support. We have plans to fly to Peru and be with the farmers. We have plans to, we've donated already, but we have plans to continue an ongoing donation to upgrade their tools. It's a whole web. We also then sponsor people for events. So when you purchase our cacao, you're doing more than just serving yourself. You are serving yourself, and that is most important, but you're also part of the collective, and hence the name. So they can get to our website there. Again, Facebook, Instagram, I'm accessible. And that's it.
And your Facebook, you're just Mitchell Vickridge.
Mitchell Vickridge, yeah. If people are seeing this, they should see the name on the Mitchell Vickridge. Yeah, there's no E in the middle. Everyone does Vickridge. I've had it my entire life because I say Vickridge, but somehow an E slips in there. So it's Vic and Ridge. Bridge without the B.
Awesome. Fantastic, man. Thank you so much again for jumping on. Appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you.
Keep shining a light, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.